I gave my mother-in-law my kidney because my husband begged me to. 2 days after the surgery, while I was still struggling to sit up in my hospital bed, he handed me divorce papers. And then the doctor walked back into the room and said something that changed everything. At that moment, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at my husband, trying to understand how my life had turned into a piece of family drama I never signed up for. My name is Claire. I'm 32, and until that week, I believed I had a solid marriage. Not perfect, not magical, but real. I had been married to Ethan for 6 years. He was calm, practical, and deeply loyal to his mother, Linda. Sometimes too loyal, but I told myself that was normal. After all, family matters, right? That's what everyone says before family drama starts tearing you apart. Linda and I were never close, but we were polite. She had a way of smiling without warmth, of praising me in public and criticizing me quietly to Ethan later. She means well, he always said. And I believed him because I loved him, because I trusted him. When Linda was diagnosed with kidney failure, everything shifted overnight. Doctors said she needed a transplant urgently. The waiting list was long. Time wasn't on her side. Ethan was tested first. He wasn't a match. Then his sister, not a match either. That's when everyone slowly turned toward me. No one asked directly at first. It started with long pauses at dinner, with comments like, "Family helps family," and "You're so healthy, Claire." Classic family drama moves dressed up as concern. I told myself I had a choice. I told myself no one was forcing me. But when Ethan broke down one night, crying in our bedroom, saying, "I can't lose my mom," my resistance collapsed. I agreed to get tested. I was a match. The room went silent when the doctor said it. Then Linda cried. Ethan hugged me like I'd saved the world. His sister called me a hero. And I felt proud. Terrified, but proud. The weeks before the surgery were a blur of paperwork, hospital visits, and subtle shifts in behavior I didn't fully notice at the time. Ethan became distant, distracted. Linda became strangely sweet. Everyone kept saying how lucky she was to have me, how blessed the family was. No one asked how scared I was. The night before the surgery, Ethan kissed my forehead and said, "After this, everything will be different, I promise." That sentence should have scared me more than it did. The surgery itself went well. That's what they told me. I woke up groggy, in pain, but relieved. I had done the right thing. I had chosen love over fear. 2 days later, Ethan came into my hospital room alone. No flowers, no smile. He sat down, avoided my eyes, and said, "We need to talk." That's when I realized this wasn't just about a kidney anymore. This was the beginning of a family drama that would strip away everything I thought I knew about loyalty, marriage, and betrayal. And I had no idea yet that the doctor's next words would quietly turn the entire story upside down. Looking back now, the signs were always there. I just didn't recognize them as family drama yet. Before Linda's diagnosis, my marriage to Ethan felt stable, quiet, predictable. We didn't fight much. We also didn't talk deeply anymore, but I assumed that was adulthood. Work, bills, routines. Nothing dramatic, nothing broken, or so I thought. Linda, on the other hand, had always been present. Not loudly, not aggressively. She lived 10 minutes away and somehow knew everything about our lives. When we ate out, when we argued, when we planned vacations. Ethan told her everything. He didn't even realize it. At first, I tried to bond with her. I brought meals, I remembered birthdays. I stayed polite even when she compared me to Ethan's ex in front of the whole family. "She was so organized," Linda once said, casually, looking straight at me. Ethan laughed it off. I smiled. That's how family drama begins, with smiles that hide discomfort. After her diagnosis, Linda's attitude toward me shifted overnight. She started calling me my angel. She squeezed my hand a little too tightly. She told everyone how lucky Ethan was to have such a selfless wife. It should have made me feel appreciated. Instead, it made me uneasy. Ethan changed too. He stopped asking how I was feeling about the surgery. Every conversation became about his mother's pain, his mother's fear, his mother's future. When I tried to express my anxiety, he'd respond with, "You're strong, you'll be fine." Strong. That word can be a weapon in family drama. The testing process took weeks. Blood draws, scans, evaluations. Every appointment reminded me that this wasn't a small sacrifice. This was permanent. One kidney, one body, one life. One night, I asked Ethan a question that still echoes in my head. Would you still love me if I said no? He didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor, then said, "Why would you even ask that?" That was his way of not answering. After I was confirmed as a match, the pressure became invisible but constant. If I hesitated, I felt guilty. If I expressed fear, I felt selfish. Linda never said, "You owe me." She didn't have to. Family gatherings became emotional performances, tears, gratitude, long speeches about sacrifice and loyalty. Everyone watched me closely, like they were afraid I'd change my mind. Ethan started spending more time at his mother's house. He said he needed him. I believed him. But sometimes, late at night, I'd notice him texting and turning his phone face down when I entered the room. If I asked, he'd say, "It's nothing, you're overthinking." Gaslighting doesn't always feel cruel. Sometimes it feels like love mixed with dismissal. The night before the surgery, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking, wondering if I was doing this for the right reasons, or because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. Ethan wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "After this, Mom will finally accept you. Everything will be easier." That sentence landed wrong, but I ignored it, because that's what people do before family drama explodes. They ignore the feeling in their chest that tells them something is deeply, dangerously wrong. And by the time I woke up after surgery, it was already too late to turn back. The morning Ethan brought the divorce papers, I was still learning how to sit up without crying out in pain. Every movement felt like my body was being torn open again. The nurse had just left. The room smelled like disinfectant and something metallic I couldn't name. Ethan closed the door quietly behind him. No, "How are you feeling?" No, "Do you need anything?" He sat down, folded his hands, and said, "I didn't want to do this here, but there's no good time." That's how casually family drama can destroy a life. I thought he was going to tell me about his mother, that something had gone wrong, that she wasn't recovering well. Instead, he placed a manila folder on the bed. Divorce papers. I remember staring at them, confused, as if they belonged to someone else. My first thought wasn't anger, it was embarrassment, like I had misunderstood a joke. "You're joking," I whispered. Ethan shook his head. "I've already talked to a lawyer." I asked him why. He sighed, like I was exhausting him. "This marriage hasn't been working for a long time, Claire. You know that." I didn't. Not like this. I reminded him that I had just donated a kidney for his mother, that I could barely walk, that maybe this conversation could wait. He looked uncomfortable, but not remorseful. "That's exactly why now makes sense," he said. "We both deserve a clean start." Clean, as if I were something that needed to be erased. When I started crying, he said, "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." When I asked if there was someone else, he said, "This isn't about another woman. Don't turn this into drama." Another classic family drama tactic: minimize, redirect, dismiss. He told me we'd grown apart, that I was too emotional lately, that the pressure of his mother's illness had shown him what really matters. Apparently, what mattered didn't include me. When I asked where I would live after leaving the hospital, he paused. "I assumed you'd go to your sister's place," he said. "Mom needs the house to recover." The house. Our house. Everything felt unreal, like I was watching my own life from the ceiling. Before he left, he said something that still chills me. "Mom is really grateful. She knows this couldn't have been easy for you." Grateful. As if this was a transaction. After he walked out, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I just lay there, realizing that this wasn't a moment of impulsive cruelty. This was planned. The pressure, the timing, the emotional distance. This family drama didn't begin in the hospital room. It began long before I ever signed the consent forms. A few hours later, the doctor came in to check up on me. He reviewed my chart, frowned slightly, then looked at me carefully. "Has anyone discussed the long-term findings with you yet?" he asked. I shook my head. He hesitated. "There's something we need to talk about." And in that moment, through the pain and betrayal, I felt it. Not hope, not relief, but the quiet certainty that Ethan and his family had missed something important, something that would change everything. The doctor closed the door behind him and pulled the privacy curtain halfway around my bed. That small movement made my chest tighten. He wasn't smiling. He sat down, flipped through my chart again, then looked straight at me. Not like a doctor delivering routine information, like someone choosing his words very carefully. "Claire," he said softly, "I need to ask you something first. Did anyone explain the full results of your pre-surgery evaluations to you?" I shook my head. "They said I was healthy, a good match." He exhaled slowly. "You are healthy, but there's more to it than that." My heart started racing. For a moment, I wondered if something had gone wrong with the surgery, if I was in danger. "The reason I'm asking," he continued, "is because your test results showed something unusual, something we don't see very often." I tightened my grip on the blanket. "Unusual how?" He hesitated again. "Your genetic marker makes you extremely compatible as a donor, not just for this surgery, but for future transplants." The words didn't fully register at first. "So, what does that mean?" I asked. "It means," he said carefully, "that your kidney was unusually valuable in medical terms, highly sought after." Valuable. I felt sick. "Was Ethan aware of this?" I asked. The doctor frowned. "I can't speak to what your husband knew, but your mother-in-law's medical team discussed these findings with her family." Family. The room felt smaller. "So they knew," I whispered. "They knew your compatibility made the surgery far less risky for her and significantly increased her long-term recovery outlook." My mind raced back through every conversation, every tearful plea, every moment I was told I was strong enough to handle it. This wasn't just family drama driven by desperation. This was strategy. The doctor continued, his voice lowering. "There's one more thing," he said. "Given your results, we would have strongly recommended counseling and independent legal advice before proceeding." "Why?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Because donors with your profile are at higher risk of being pressured, especially within families." Pressured. Used. The room went quiet. I thought of Ethan's timing, of the divorce papers, of the house suddenly no longer being mine. They didn't just want my kidney, they wanted me gone, after. Tears rolled down my temples, but I didn't wipe them away. I felt hollow, like something inside me had collapsed quietly instead of shattering. "Is there anything I can do now?" I asked. The doctor looked at me with something close to sympathy. Right now, your priority is recovery, but I do recommend you speak to a patient advocate immediately." After he left, I lay there, staring at the wall. My body hurt. My marriage was over. But beneath the pain, something else began to form. Not rage, not revenge, clarity. This family drama had taken my trust, my marriage, and a part of my body, but it had also shown me exactly who they were. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I realized something important. I didn't need to destroy them. I just needed to stop protecting them. I didn't confront Ethan after the doctor left. Not that day. Not the next. That surprised everyone. Nurses expected tears. My sister expected rage. Even Ethan, when he returned once to check on me, looked almost disappointed that I didn't explode. That's the thing about family drama. People expect pain to be loud. Mine wasn't. While my body healed, my mind stayed alert. I asked questions. I listened more than I spoke. The patient advocate the doctor recommended visited me the next morning. Her name was Marissa. Calm voice, sharp eyes. She explained my rights as a living donor, what should have been disclosed, what records existed, and what could not be undone but could still be documented. "Do you want us to flag anything?" she asked gently. "Yes," I said. "Everything." From that moment on, I stopped being the passive character in this family drama. I requested copies of every consent form, every email summary, every note that mentioned my compatibility. It turned out the transplant team had documented multiple family meetings I was never invited to, discussions about timing, post-op support, and living arrangements. Living arrangements, meaning where I wouldn't be living. I forwarded everything to my own email, quietly, legally. Meanwhile, Ethan kept sending carefully worded messages. "I hope you're healing well. We can talk when you're stronger. There's no need to make this messy." Messy. Another favorite word in family drama. It really means, "Don't expose us." I replied politely, briefly. No emotion, no accusations. That unsettled him more than anger ever could. When I was discharged, I didn't go to my sister's place. I went to a short-term recovery apartment recommended by the hospital, covered by donor care provisions Ethan clearly hadn't bothered to research. I didn't tell him. 2 weeks later, Linda was released from the hospital. That's when the cracks started showing. Ethan assumed I would sign the divorce papers quietly, that I'd be too weak, too grateful, too ashamed. Instead, my lawyer requested a delay, medical recovery clause. Suddenly, the timeline they had so carefully planned fell apart. Linda began calling. At first, she left voicemails full of gratitude and concern. Then frustration crept in. "We really need to settle things," she said in one message. "Ethan is under a lot of stress." Stress, from the woman walking around with my kidney. I never responded. Not because I was afraid, but because silence forces people to reveal themselves. And they did. Ethan's messages became sharper, less gentle, more urgent. "Why are you doing this? You know Mom needs stability. You're being unfair." Unfair. I almost laughed. This family drama had always relied on my compliance, my empathy, my desire to keep the peace. Once that disappeared, they had nothing. Behind the scenes, my lawyer and a patient advocate coordinated quietly. No threats, no drama, just facts. And those facts were about to collide with a legal system that doesn't look kindly on people who treat organ donors as disposable. I didn't need revenge fueled by anger. I had something better. Time, documentation, and the truth. Karma doesn't always arrive with a crash. Sometimes it walks in quietly, holding paperwork. About a month after my discharge, Ethan called me for the first time instead of texting. His voice sounded tight, rehearsed. "We need to talk," he said. There's been a complication. I let the silence stretch before answering. About what? The divorce, he said quickly, and the house. Ah, the house. That house had been purchased 3 years into our marriage, mostly with my savings, a detail Ethan seemed to have forgotten. My lawyer hadn't. During the delay period, we'd reviewed everything: bank statements, property records, emails. Patterns emerged. Ethan assumed I would walk away quietly, that I'd be too consumed by recovery and family drama to look back. Instead, the documentation showed something interesting: the timing of the divorce papers, the pre-surgery family meetings, the sudden push to relocate me immediately after surgery. None of it looked good. When Ethan finally admitted that his lawyer had concerns, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "They're saying I might owe you spousal support," he said. "That doesn't make sense." "It does," I replied calmly, "given the circumstances." He lowered his voice. "They're also asking questions about Mom." Now that caught my attention. It turned out the hospital's ethics committee had reviewed my case internally, not because I filed a complaint, but because patient advocates are required to flag potential coercion. Family drama has a paper trail when it crosses medical lines. Linda was called in for a review interview. So was Ethan. No accusations, just questions. Why were meetings held without the donor present? Why was housing discussed without her knowledge? Why was divorce initiated during post-operative vulnerability? There were no criminal charges. There didn't need to be. Hospitals hate risk. So do transplant boards. Linda's follow-up care became complicated. Additional evaluations, more scrutiny, less flexibility. Ethan's sister stopped returning his calls. She didn't want her name anywhere near the situation. Suddenly, the united family front cracked. At the same time, my lawyer submitted a formal response to the divorce filing, citing medical exploitation, requesting favorable terms. Ethan panicked. "This could ruin us," he said during one phone call. "You don't need to do this." I corrected him gently. "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm just not covering for you anymore." That was the moment he understood. This wasn't revenge. It was consequence. The settlement came quietly. I kept the house, full ownership. Spousal support was limited, but fair. More importantly, the divorce was finalized on my timeline, not theirs. Linda never apologized, but she stopped calling. Ethan moved back into her house, suddenly responsible for the very care he'd expected me to provide. Funny how family drama circles back like that. As for me, I focused on healing, physically, emotionally. I didn't celebrate their discomfort. I didn't need to, because karma had done exactly what it does best. It balanced the scales without ever raising its voice. After everything was finalized, the silence felt strange. No more legal emails, no more hospital calls, no more carefully worded messages pretending to care. Just quiet. At first, that quiet scared me. For years, my life had revolved around managing emotions that weren't mine. Ethan's guilt, Linda's expectations, the constant tension of family drama disguised as family loyalty. When it was gone, I didn't know who I was without it. Recovery took longer than I expected, not just physically. There were days I'd wake up and reach for my phone, half expecting a message telling me what I needed to fix, who I needed to please. Those messages never came. Instead, I learned to listen to my own body again, to respect its limits, to rest without apology. Therapy helped, not because I was broken, but because I had been trained to doubt myself. That's the quiet damage family drama leaves behind. It teaches you to question your instincts while calling it love. I replayed moments from the past with new clarity. the night Ethan avoided my question about saying no, the way Linda praised me only when I was useful, the subtle pressure dressed up as gratitude. None of it had been accidental. But here's the part that surprised me most. I didn't feel hatred. I felt relief. Relief that I no longer had to earn my place. Relief that my worth wasn't measured by sacrifice. Relief that love, real love, doesn't demand pieces of your body to prove itself. Friends asked if I regretted donating my kidney. That question lingered with me for a long time. I don't regret helping someone in need. I regret that my compassion was exploited. There's a difference, and understanding that difference changed how I saw myself. I stopped seeing myself as the woman who was betrayed. I started seeing myself as the woman who survived with clarity intact. The experience taught me something I wish I'd learned earlier. People who truly love you will never rush you into irreversible decisions. They will never benefit from your silence. They will never call your boundaries selfish. Family drama thrives in secrecy and compliance. Healing begins with truth and self-respect. Today, my life is smaller, but lighter. I live in the same house, now fully mine. I work less, I breathe more. Sometimes I place my hand over the scar and remind myself that it's not a symbol of loss. It's proof. Proof that I gave too much once and survived. Proof that I can give less now and thrive. I don't know what happened to Ethan and his family after that, and for the first time, I don't feel the need to know. Because my story didn't end when they walked away. It began when I stopped walking behind them. If someone you loved asked you to sacrifice everything for family, how would you know where love ends and exploitation begins? I'd really like to know what you think.